In the darkest corners of our world, where reality blurs with the unseen, true horror unfolds. Amidst the mundane humdrum of our daily lives, there exist tales of eerie encounters, filled with hair-raising moments that can send shivers down the spine of the bravest souls. These are not the works of fiction, nor are they the products of overactive imaginations. They are, in fact, accounts of real experiences, lived by ordinary people, much like you and me. Tonight we peel back the veil of the everyday to reveal the hidden horrors that lurk in the shadows. We stand at the precipice of the unknown, teetering on the edge of the abyss of fear and dread. We invite you to step with us into the chilling night to explore the unsettling reality that lies beneath. Join us now as we delve into the chilling reality of 3 true horror encounters. Our first tale takes us into the heart of a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the night held an unexpected visitor. In the early days of summer, when the days were long and the nights were warm, a resident of the neighborhood began to notice something odd. The stillness of the evening was occasionally broken by the soft rustle of leaves, the distant echo of footsteps, the faintest hint of a shadow passing by the corner of their vision. At first, these occurrences were attributed to the usual nocturnal activities. The nocturnal creatures that came to life after sundown, the wind playing with the foliage, or perhaps even the tricks that darkness plays on the mind. But as days turned into weeks, the oddities began to escalate. The rustling leaves grew louder, the footsteps grew closer, and the fleeting shadows became more frequent. The resident, curious yet unnerved, decided to keep an eye out for these peculiar incidents. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they would watch the shadows dance in their yard, listen for the footsteps that echoed in the stillness, and wait for the rustling leaves that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. One night, as the resident sat in their living room, they heard a tap on their window. Startled, they turned towards the window, but saw nothing but their own reflection staring back at them. They brushed it off as a stray branch or a bird, but couldn't shake off the unease that crept into their heart. A few nights later, the tapping returned. This time, it was louder and more urgent. The resident, with a pounding heart and a sense of dread, mustered the courage to look out the window. Their blood ran cold as they saw a figure standing in their yard. It was a stranger, shrouded in darkness, barely visible under the faint moonlight. The stranger stood there, motionless, as if observing the house. The resident, their heart pounding in their chest, quickly turned off the lights, hoping the darkness would hide them from the stranger's gaze. They peeked through the curtains, and to their horror, the stranger was still there, standing silently in the yard. The resident decided to call the police, their hands shaking as they dialed the number. But as they were on the call, they glanced out the window and found the yard empty. The stranger had disappeared, as silently and mysteriously as they had appeared. When the police arrived, they found no sign of the stranger, no footprints, no evidence, nothing. They assured the resident it was probably a prank or a case of mistaken identity, but the resident couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in their heart. In the following nights, the resident kept a vigilant watch, but the stranger never returned. The rustling leaves returned to their normal whisper, the shadows danced their usual dance, and the footsteps echoed no more. The nights returned to their usual quiet, but the memory of the stranger lingered, casting a long, chilling shadow over the quiet suburban neighborhood. The resident couldn't help but wonder who the stranger was, what they wanted, and why they had chosen their house. But the answers remained elusive, hidden in the shadows of the night. The only thing that was certain was the unsettling feeling that the stranger's gaze had imprinted on their soul, a chilling reminder of the night when the quiet suburban neighborhood was visited by an unexpected guest. The midnight stranger had vanished, leaving behind nothing but a chilling memory and an unsettled quiet. We move our journey to an abandoned asylum, a place where the echoes of the past still reverberate through the crumbling hallways. In the heart of the city, hidden behind a veil of overgrown foliage and decay, lies a monument to a forgotten era. A derelict asylum, once a bustling hub of medical innovation and a sanctuary for minds lost in the labyrinth of their own thoughts. Now it stands in silent decay, empty save for the memories of its past. But as we'll soon discover, maybe it's not as empty as it appears. Our story begins with a group of thrill seekers, 5 friends with a shared appetite for the unknown, the eerie, the downright terrifying. One evening, they set their sights on this abandoned asylum, drawn to the whispers of its haunted past. Armed with nothing but their courage and a few flashlights, they ventured into the darkness, ready to challenge the ghosts of yesteryears. As they stepped inside the asylum, the air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread. The walls, once painted a hopeful white, now bore the scars of time and neglect, covered in a tapestry of peeling paint and graffiti. The stillness was broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing through the long-forgotten corridors, a chilling symphony of their audacity. The deeper they ventured, the more the asylum began to reveal its secrets. They stumbled upon a room filled with discarded medical equipment, rusted and covered in a layer of dust. A chilling reminder of the countless souls that had once sought solace within these walls. As they moved from room to room, an unsettling sensation began to creep over them. A feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes tracking their every move. The air grew colder, the silence more deafening. It was as if the asylum itself was alive, its heartbeat echoing in the hollow spaces. In the heart of the asylum, they found an old patient's room. The remnants of a life lived in isolation still lingered. An old bed frame, a broken mirror, a single worn-out shoe. It was here that the thrill-seekers had their first encounter with the unseen. Suddenly a cold gust of wind swept through the room, sending a shiver down their spines. The air grew dense, the temperature plummeted, their breaths visible in the icy air. Then without warning, the broken mirror began to shake violently, its shards dancing in the dim light. A spectral figure materialized in the mirror's reflection, its eyes vacant, its mouth opened in a silent scream. Paralyzed by fear, the thrill-seekers watched as the apparition reached out to them, its hand passing through the mirror as though it were made of water. The room filled with an unearthly chill, the air heavy with despair. The spectral figure's silent scream echoed in their minds, a chilling reminder of the pain and torment that had once permeated these walls. In a moment of sheer terror, the thrill-seekers turned to flee, their screams echoing through the abandoned asylum. They scrambled through the corridors, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows on the decaying walls. Behind them, they could hear the spectral figure's silent scream growing louder, its despair seeping into their very souls. Finally, they burst through the entrance, the cold night air a harsh contrast to the heavy atmosphere inside. They left the asylum behind, their hearts pounding, their minds filled with the haunting image of the spectral figure trapped within the mirror. Their thrill-seeking adventure had turned into a chilling encounter with the unseen. The thrill-seekers escaped, forever haunted by the lingering souls of the abandoned asylum. Our final tale takes us deep into the heart of a dense forest, where nature hides its own horrifying secrets. Picture this: a hiker, let's call him Sam, sets off on a journey through a sprawling forest. The allure of the wilderness, with its towering trees and the symphony of its inhabitants, lures him in. The forest, he thought, held a tranquil solitude that he cherished. Little did he know, the forest had other plans. As Sam ventures deeper into the woods, he can't shake off a feeling of unease. He brushes it off as the work of an overactive imagination. After all, humans have a knack for creating monsters where none exist. Yet, the feeling persists, crawling under his skin like 1,000 tiny spiders. As the sun began to set, the forest took on an entirely different personality. Shadows grew longer, and the once comforting sounds of nature took on an eerie quality. Sam could hear the rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, and a low hum that seemed to be growing louder. An icy chill ran down Sam's spine as he realized he wasn't alone. He could feel it, the presence of something else, something that didn't belong in the natural order of things. It was a sensation that went beyond the physical. It was as though the forest itself was alive, watching him, breathing down his neck. He tried to dismiss it, chalking it up to the darkness playing tricks on his mind. But the unease grew stronger, transforming into a primal fear. His heart pounded in his chest like a wild drum, and his palms were slick with cold sweat. Suddenly, a gut-wrenching scream echoed through the trees, bouncing off the trunks and piercing the night. It was a sound that no animal could produce, a sound that spoke of an ancient terror, a chilling entity that lurked in the darkest corners of the forest. Sam's blood ran cold. He was frozen in place, his body refusing to obey his mind's desperate command to run. And then he saw it, a figure barely visible in the muted moonlight. It was a specter, an apparition that seemed to be made of the forest itself. It was a manifestation of the forest's dark secrets, a chilling entity that had awakened from its slumber. The entity moved toward him, its form shifting and morphing with each step. It was as if the entity was part of the forest, and the forest was part of it. Sam could feel its cold gaze, could hear its haunting whispers. He was in its territory now, a plaything in its hands. In that moment, Sam realized the gravity of his situation. He was not dealing with a mere creature of the woods, he was facing the forest itself, an entity that embodied the wild, the unknown, and the frightening. Summoning every ounce of courage, Sam started to back away, his eyes never leaving the entity. It seemed to grow larger, its form now towering over him. He could feel his life force draining away, being consumed by the entity. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the entity vanished. The forest fell silent, and the chilling presence was gone. It was as though the forest had swallowed it whole, hiding it once again in its depths. Sam didn't waste another moment. He turned and ran, his heart pounding in his ears. He didn't stop until he had emerged from the forest, the comforting sight of civilization greeting his weary eyes. The experience left a deep imprint on Sam. The forest, once a place of tranquility, was now a reminder of the chilling encounter. Each rustling leaf, each whispering wind echoed the memory of the entity. The hiker emerged forever marked by the chilling entity of the forest. From quiet neighborhoods to abandoned asylums to the depths of the forest, true horror lurks where we least expect it. The tales we've shared today are not mere fabrications or flights of fancy. They are echoes from the abyss, reflections of the unanticipated and the inexplicable that lurk in the corners of our world. Each story, from the midnight stranger's haunting presence in a peaceful neighborhood, to the chilling echoes in the derelict asylum, and finally, to the forest entity's cryptic existence, compels us to question our perceived safety. The midnight stranger was not a figment of imagination but a stark reality for someone who thought their home was their sanctuary. The abandoned asylum, once a place of healing, became a chilling monument to despair and unquiet spirits. The forest entity, a spectral being, shattered the tranquility of the wilderness, reminding us that even the most serene places can harbor unseen terrors. These stories, vastly different in their settings and circumstances, are bound by a common thread, the element of the unexpected. The uncanny ability of the unknown to invade our everyday spaces, to transform the mundane into the macabre, and to convert the familiar into the unfamiliar is what makes these encounters truly terrifying. It's not just about the fear of what lurks in the dark, but the unsettling realization that the ordinary can become extraordinary, and not in a way that brings comfort. It's the disquieting knowledge that horror doesn't always wear a monstrous face, but often cloaks itself in the guise of the commonplace. As we part ways, remember, the world is full of unseen horrors. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and remember, the truth is often stranger and more terrifying than fiction. The shadows of the night, the abandoned buildings, the unexplored wilderness, they all hold secrets waiting to be discovered. But sometimes, it's better to let sleeping horrors lie. For the world is not just what we see, it's also what we don't see.